sing like another song and buy me time. But I I started preparing this about 8 days ago, and I was like, wow, 8 days ago, like I'm pretty ahead of the game. And I don't know if you ever happened this, but this morning I'm like, I really don't know if I have my stuff together, and I don't know if this is gonna like flow, or if I'm gonna make any sense. But yeah, I guess I'll give it anyways, right? Is that cool? Yeah. Okay.
Oh.
Thanks, John. Okay, so I'm going to start with something completely random and unrelated, okay? So I was at a Thai shop in the Philippines, and I was with 3 of my friends, and we were looking at ties, and there was a brown one, and I bought it because I thought it looked pretty cool. And my friend points at this pink tie, and she's like, hey, that's kind of a nice color. And I'm like, that is the ugliest tie I've ever seen in my life. Is a hot pink tie. A couple months later, I received a package in the mail. Like, that tie that you really liked at the Thai store? I bought it for you. I looked at it and I was like, are you kidding me? And I thought, anyways, I feel really bad when someone buys me a gift and I don't use it. So anyways, I'm using it. She can thank me later. Okay. So, I actually wanted to start with, so I started with something random, but what I wanted to start with is sharing a little about my very highly active nightlife, which involves going to sleep and dreaming. Okay? And yeah, I've actually, my brother Ken actually bought me this dream journal for my birthday, which was like 3 months ago. And I looked at it and I was like, okay, I guess that's one of those gifts I don't use. And I ended up using it. And I've been recording my dreams and learning a lot about dreaming. And been dreaming pretty much consistently every night. Well, they say that you always dream, it's just we don't remember our dreams. So I've been remembering my dreams pretty much every night. I'll tell you, I am fascinated by my dream life. Sometimes it's more interesting than this life. Not in like a bad way, but I really feel like it's complementary. Like, I'm very productive in my real life, and then I'm also very productive in my sleeping life. It's pretty great, right? And so I have something called lucid dreaming. Does anyone know what lucid dreaming means? Okay, a couple people. So lucid dreaming is when you're dreaming and you're aware that you're dreaming inside of your dream. Now, skeptics say that, here, I'll read it. There's this guy, Malcolm, I kind of hate him. Malcolm, no, I'm just kidding, I don't hate this guy. But Malcolm further describes lucid dreaming as absurd and impossible. Recalling, as an example, I dreamt that I realized I was dreaming. Dreamt that I was affecting the course of my dream. And then dreamt that I woke myself up by telling myself to wake up. And I was like, okay, if I were to think, was I aware that I was dreaming, or was I just dreaming that I was aware that I was dreaming? I really can't prove that wrong. But the fact of whether it's lucid dreaming is impossible or not, it still means something to me, right? And it's very important to me. And it just wasn't important to me whether this guy thought it was real or not, because it meant something to me. And so I'll share two dreams. One's fun, and that dream is that I was, does everyone know Harry Potter? Okay, so I was flying on a broomstick, and it was so exhilarating to learn how to fly on a broomstick that I'd say it's more exciting than when I skydived in real life. And then, so anyways, that's one dream. And then I had another dream where I was in an airport. This airport kind of looked like a mall, and it was actually a school. And it was my school, and I was back in Chemistry 101, which was a freshman class with like 300 people. And, you know, I'm a senior, but I was back in this class, and I was taking a test, and I did not study for the test. So I'm kind of freaking out about it. I'm sitting in this room with 300 people, and I've got this test in front of me, and as I'm taking it, I'm dozing off and falling asleep. And I'm like kind of circling things, and then like nodding off, and I'm like, this is not good. I don't have enough time. And I really need to go to the bathroom. So I get up, and I go to the bathroom, and I realize, you know what? This is a dream. And I realized that, or I dreamt that I was realized that you know, either one, right? And so I was like, John Hutcherson was there. So John was like, yeah, this is a dream. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe we should like go flying or something. And so we just kind of take off and start flying over this really beautiful grassy meadow. I don't know where it came from, you know, where the airport went. And it was extremely peaceful and freeing. And I really had this experience that, you know, this is a dream. There's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to be afraid of. And it was like real peace, you know. And I remember that dream. And even though, you know, it's like, does this exist or not? It meant something to me, right? And so it kind of gave me some empathy towards really spiritual and particularly like really weird people, because it's something that you can't prove to people, you know? But it means something to you, and like God too, right? It's like, are you going to prove God exists? No. Are you going to prove that God doesn't exist? Probably not either. You know, I think what it's about is, well, what does it mean to whoever? And so, anyways, it had me really, you know, look at how much I analyze. You know, whoever's up here, unfortunately it's me today, but whoever would be up here, I'd always analyze like, you know, I don't agree with that, and you know, where are they getting their facts for that, and yada yada yada. And so, anyways, today my hope is that if anything I share means something to you, that it can be, you know, worthwhile, right? Whether it's factually backed up or whatever. That's kind of where I'm coming from. Okay. Yeah. So I'm gonna share a couple of just stories. Okay. I'm going to start with what I want to talk about. What I kind of want to talk about is love, but first I want to explain why I want to talk about that. So, why I want to talk about that, first I'll share, just honestly, I'm in a phase of my life where I've been really like questioning a lot of the things I have a lot of confidence in. And it's just like kind of this recurring cycle where it's like I get really confident in something and I really like I'm driven by it, and then I'm like, you know what, I don't know about that. And then I would go into this really explorative process where it's really fun and exciting, and it's kind of like, so what's next for my life? And it's a really creative process. And so that's kind of the space I'm in now, and I realized one thing that is on my bucket list for my life is to be a millionaire. And people would always tell me, Gene, I don't know, you're going to be a millionaire, and when you're a millionaire, you know, we're still friends so that you can help me out. I'm like, okay, yeah, you know, sure. And I really habit that I'm going to be a millionaire, and that's really important to me, you know? And I realized, well, why do I want to be a millionaire? Because that's my measurement for success. And when I'm a millionaire, then I'll be successful. And so I recently just was like, well, and it's not even like being rich. It's like being $1 million, right? Like that exact 7th digit. So I realized, well, I'm really out to prove my success, and actually that's not that important to me. You know, I don't really care if I'm a millionaire or not. And I might be a millionaire, or I might not be, but that's not really important. Okay, so then what is important? And that's kind of what has me in this really explorative phase of what's important. And what I kind of think about is the times when I'm usually by myself, and I'm usually in some way like not very happy with my life, in some way trying to escape from my life. And so I just find myself in these spaces where I'll be like really wanting to do some time wasters. Like what I like to do is, confession time, watch trailers. Movie trailers are exciting and fun and sometimes better than the real movie. So I love watching a bunch of movie trailers, and it's a real time waster. And my favorite is probably taking a nap. Have you ever taken a nap because you were really tired, and then you woke up and you were still tired? And then you kind of realized that it wasn't that much of a physical exhaustion, but just like mentally and spiritually, you're just exhausted and, you know, done with, you know, all these weird people, right? So I have that going on too, right? And so what I'm looking at is, well, then what is really important to me, right? And when am I really when do I really like myself, you know? When am I really proud of who I'm being? And it's usually when I'm like leading a small group or facilitating a discussion about, you know, what's important in people's lives, or having a one-on-one conversation with a good friend of mine. And that's when I find that I really like myself, and there's actually no desire to escape to some sort of time waster or going to sleep or anything like that. And it's always those like really raw and authentic moments where I felt, you know, that I just am in love with those moments, right? And so that's why I wanted to talk about love and whatever, you know, whatever in the world that means, right? So anyways, what's been really like constantly there in my mind is to love is to risk. And I've always felt like those risky moments are the most worthwhile for me. And I want to share a couple of those. So those moments I call very human moments. And an example of that is I was on a road trip with a good friend of mine. And we road tripped for about 30 hours or something like that to Niagara Falls, then to Boston, then to New York, then to Maryland. It was a long road trip, and we were in the car together. And that's within the span of like 3 or 4 days. So we're going about 5 to 7 hours a day of driving, and the first couple hours was really exciting. We're going to Niagara Falls, and it was kind of a spontaneous move because my friend was like, I don't know if my car can handle it. And I was like, okay, well, you know, we can get a rental. I was like, yeah, we can get a rental. Actually, I think my car can handle it. That's cheaper anyways. I was like, okay. So we take his car to Niagara Falls, and we're talking, and we're really close friends, and so we're just talking about our lives and, you know, just everything about our lives and really catching up. And then about 4 hours in, we run out of things to talk about. It's like, okay, and we're like, happily, he likes to sing in the car, so he's singing, and I'm whistling, and we're just kind of going to Niagara Falls. And then about 15 hours in, we make like snide jokes at each other, but at some point, I'm really like, I'm feeling like the jokes he's making are not for me. You know? He's not making those jokes for me to laugh, but instead he's making those jokes for himself. Does that make sense? And so I kind of get offended by that. I'm like, and I'm joking too, right? Except my jokes are for me. And so I'm going on this, what I later call a big ego trip with them, because I'm annoyed by him, and I'm like too annoyed, like, and I have it that he doesn't care that I'm annoyed, so I don't want to talk about it, and I don't want to bring it up. And I go to this youth pastor retreat. I went to a youth pastor's retreat a couple weeks ago, and immediately the first thing we do is write down the intention of what we want to do for the youth pastor retreat. So I'm going to read you a couple of things I wrote down. These are actually hard to write down. Okay. To practice being humble and give up my ego tripping. And I knew as soon as I wrote that down that I was like, I have to talk to my friend. And then I wrote to practice being responsible for our team's empowerment. To practice being connected, giving up my automatic judgment when people aren't doing or acting the way I think that they should. As if I know and act that way myself. And then to practice taking risks. Risk for myself and risk for others. To let God into the space. And as soon as I wrote out these intentions, my whole paradigm shift, and I just felt like, almost like I was just a different person in a way. I was like thinking differently, and immediately I went to my friend. I was like, I'm sorry, I was really ego tripping and got really offended by your jokes, and I kind of exploded on him. I was like, I was just really annoyed. I didn't think you cared, and I took it really personally. And he was like, yeah, I know, and he apologized too. And one thought that was going through my mind when I was annoyed at him was, I think this is going to have to be our last road trip together. And me and my friend have gone on road trips, like we go consistently, right? Like every 6 months to a year. And I was like, this is going to be our last road trip together because I can't handle this. And as soon as I got and told him, like I was just really annoyed at you, and I'm sorry, I was just really annoyed at you. And that thought immediately disappeared, and I immediately was like, I want to go on another road trip. And we want to go overseas next time. But anyways, that's besides the point. And so, that for me is love. Like that is just that moment where me and him just took a risk, right? I took a risk on him, he took a risk on me. And I feel like in that moment, there was love, right? Same thing, funny thing, happens everywhere. Like with my small business partner, same thing, totally annoyed by him, and I realized, it's easier for me to blame them than to actually look at myself and take responsibility myself. And I think it's funny how what my friend was doing to annoy me, making jokes for him, is actually something I was doing to someone else a couple days before that. And I asked that someone, is it really annoying when I make like really dry, sarcastic comments that are kind of offensive, and it's kind of more for me than it is for you as a joke? And they're like, yeah, just a little bit, I'm like, oh, okay. And I was still getting totally annoyed by my friend when he was doing this to me, right? So I can't help, whenever I get annoyed with someone, just know in the back of my head, I do the same thing all the time. And it's so automatic for me to go to my ego and be like, I don't need that person anyways. I've got other friends. And I've got 900 Facebook friends. They like me, right? And it's so easy to like throw people away, right? And then to love is to risk, right? So that's one thing about love I want to talk about. To love is to risk. And then the other thing was to love is to create. And love as a creation. And so I know it's the 3rd anniversary for this man's son-in-law. And some people were mentioning it to me. And were like, oh yeah, that's happening. Maybe you should talk about it. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what to talk about. I kind of have mixed feelings about church, about religion, about this guy. It's like, I don't know if you really want me to talk about this stuff. And then when I really got honest with myself, I had mixed feelings about people. I have mixed feelings about my own life. I have mixed feelings about everything, When I really get honest with myself, I can be kind of a drama queen about it. I'd rather it be really interesting and dramatic than just accept things, and embrace things. But there was one thing that did come to me, and that was that this guy used to make a lot of declarations, right? Right?
Yes.
And they were very powerful and very big visioned declarations about peace for the world and for the cosmos, and right? And so it got me thinking about like declarations, right? I did NGA for 2 years, and NGA, we do declarations every once in a while. And it goes something like, I'm stepping out of my insecurity and into being alive, something like that, right? And it's like, I kind of look back at it and kind of joke about it sometimes, but there's something very powerful about our word, right? And being able to speak things. And it's like when I speak it, it becomes more real when I speak it, and especially with people. And so I wanted to share a couple things about, so I'm going to steal a story from my friend. And so I have a friend at school, and for the sake, I'll call her Emily. She's Indian, but we'll go with Emily. All right? And she was really frustrated at her dad, right? And she shares with me about her dad every once in a while, and shares about how he's kind of like very verbally abusive to her. And in Indian culture, it's very strong, and she's got to go to med school, and she doesn't want to go to med school, but he's paying for her schooling and for everything, and so she feels like she has to do what he says, and she really resents this guy, right? And I say, you know what? It sounds like, I know you sound really annoyed with your dad, but it sounds like you really love your dad. Because otherwise you wouldn't be complaining about him so much. You just would write him off and get rid of him. And she paused. And she was like, yeah. And a month later, she shares with me that she gave her dad a call. And in her call, she talked to her dad, and she was like, and I just want to let you know, Dad, I love you. And when she's telling me, she's like, yeah, he just kind of got dead silent for a minute. And I could kind of hear him over the phone, tearing out. And I feel like those are the moments where love gets created. And it's not like an assumption oh, he's my dad, he knows I love him. But it actually gets created in that, in those words, in that declaration. And so we had a link up this last Saturday. Yesterday. And so link up is Lucy Bach, hosts, whoever wants to come, and she'll have some sort of activity, some sort of personal development activity. And so what she did is she had something called the phone call. And the phone call, we just reflected on a person who we had like a crappy relationship with, and we just looked at, well, how can we be responsible instead of blaming that person, right? And so I picked this guy, and so I was a resident advisor, and his name, I'm going to call him, let's see, Pedro. He's American, but we'll call him Pedro. And so Pedro was a resident of mine, and he lived in this suite. And so I have 4 suites that I was taking care of as a resident advisor, and this was like my favorite suite. And so this suite, I would go in, and as soon as I walked into the suite, they would all be like, "Gene!" And I'd be like, "Hey!" It's kind of like this thing we did, right? A very fun, affectionate suite. And I was really cool with this guy, Pedro, and we even went to some events together on campus. And at some point, their complaints came against Pedro making too much noise and drinking alcohol in the dorm. And if you know that, in school you're not allowed to drink in the dorm, and I'm the guy who's supposed to enforce that policy, and someone's complaining about it, so I can't really pretend it doesn't exist, right? And so it's like it's like pretty obvious, right? It's like, okay, there's alcohol and I've got to deal with it. Pedro and our relationship completely shifted after I dealt with this alcohol incident, right? And he did not want to talk to me, and whenever we saw each other, it was kind of like, "Oh, hi, Pedro," and he'd be like, didn't even look at me, right? And so anyways, I felt pretty hurt by this, because I was actually really cool with this guy, and now I felt like totally cut off. And so what did I do? I totally cut him off. Because I was like, okay, he's just upset at me and he will not forgive me for this. Last night, when we were talking about a relationship that's really crappy, that was the one I picked, and I realized that for me, I was kind of being a jerk to him, cutting him off like that, because when I cut him off, it was really like, okay, I'm done with him. And whenever he interacted with me after that, I was always very thick-skinned with him, and very very defensive, and they weren't very good interactions either. He came into my room and he was like, "Hey Gene, I just want to let you know that I got kicked out," and I'm like buzzing my hair, so I'm like, okay. And he's like, and you know what? I didn't get kicked out for any alcohol. I got kicked out for having a bad attitude. And then he slams the door and leaves. And I'm kind of like, well, that was dramatic. And very, very nonchalant, I don't care anymore. And so I gave him a call yesterday. And the part of the activity for the link up, it didn't have to do with giving a call, but if you wanted to give the person a call, then sure. So I gave the guy a call, and he didn't pick up, so I left a voicemail. It's like, "Hey Pedro, yeah, this is Gene, your XRA. No, I haven't talked to you in a year and a half. I just wanted to let you know that I wanted to apologize. I wanted to apologize because I was kind of being a jerk and totally cutting off from you and pretending like that, you being upset at me had no impact on me, and I was being really thick-skinned about it, and I just totally cut you off from there. And so I just want to apologize for that, and I'm really wishing that whatever you're doing now, that you're happy doing something that you really love doing, and that you're doing kind of like what you want to do with your life. So anyways, I just want to send you best wishes, and that's it. All right, thanks, Pedro. Click. And that for me was very freeing in a way, and that he can really get that, like, we had a rough relationship, but I still am interested in him having a really great life and him loving what he does. And so and this is all getting back to love as a creation that gets created and created with our words and our declarations. And so, as a parting note, I don't know if this was too short, but this is the end of my sermon, talk, whatever. And I want to finish it with, what is it that you want to declare for yourself, for others? Like, what's really important to you that you want to take a risk on and create for the world, right? So let's close with prayer. Thank you for this beautiful opportunity that we had to be in an exploration of what love is and looking at what's really important in life and what really has us love who we are and like who we're being. So, thank you for this beautiful world that we have, this beautiful community, and I pray that we can connect and take risks and be vulnerable to letting love into our lives. So thank you, and I'd like to report all this up. Amen. Okay. Thank you.